Chapter 4, Angel Island. G'day everyone, Rune here, and welcome to Chapter 4 of my rebooted What If Sonic Was Created by Gerald Robotnic story. If you're new to this story, click the link in the description below to be taken to the playlist. Now let's begin the next chapter. Amy dusts off her hands in satisfaction as she and Sonic walk away from the pile of smoking metal that had once been the start of Eggman's army. The man himself had taken off at high speed after Sonic and Amy had started going to town on his little toys, not wanting to stick around for them to finish up. It's a good thing that Eggman has established himself as someone that never tries the same thing twice, or she might have been worried about him trying to use the time stones or use Little Planet as a base when it returns next year. Jumping off the mystical planetoid, the two hedgehogs watch as it disappears in a shower of stars. After a few seconds of watching the stars glitter and fade, Sonic gives a tired sigh before petting Amy on the back and telling her that she was awesome back there. Amy grins, telling Sonic that he was great too. Smile fading a little, she tells Sonic that she's sorry his plan to use the time stones didn't work out. Sonic waves the apology off, telling her that he should have considered the possibility of something like that happening. But hey, desperation can make even the smartest of people do stupid things. He'll just have to keep looking. He's sure he'll find something eventually. His tone is jovial, but Amy can see the devastation in his eyes. He was really hoping that this would be the thing that got him home. It's a painful thing to see. Smiling softly, she asks him if he's got any ideas on where to look next. Sonic shakes his head before throwing an arm over his shoulders, saying that he can start the search up again later. Right now, he needs to introduce her to the tales of this timeline. The next few weeks are rather quiet, as Sonic introduces his two friends to each other, with Amy gushing about how adorable little Tails is. This had earned the two some very confused looks from the Fox until Sonic gave him a Cliff Notes version of his and Amy's adventures through time, also explaining his whole situation with being displaced. The two time travelers take advantage of the quiet to rest and recuperate from their adventure, while Tails is doing a little investigating of his own into any possible new leads on how Sonic can get back home. During this, Sonic's two friends ask him about his family, and Sonic regales them with stories of his Gramps, his big brother Shad, and his Maria. Sonic is very confused as to why calling Maria his sister feels off, but brushes it off. He can ask her about it once he gets home. One day, Tails asks Sonic if he's ever tried using the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic tells him that he's never really had the chance. He's always been in the middle of something whenever he got his hands on them, and they'd get scattered soon after. Tails grabs the yellow emerald out of his lab, explaining that he'd gotten it ahead of time, just in case. Handing it to Sonic, he asks him if he can feel anything. Sonic raises an eyebrow at Tails, telling him that it's not quite that simple. His grandpa taught him and Shads the theory of chaos control, but they were never able to actually practice. He can sense the energy inside of it, but he's never tried pulling it out before. Tails asks further questions about what Sonic knows about the Chaos Emerald's energy, and Sonic mentions that when he had multiple of them, he could feel their energy resonating with each other. This gives Tails an idea. Sonic has never gotten all 7 of the emeralds before. Maybe that's the key to getting him home. It's said that when all 7 are together, a miracle will happen. And Sonic said that the emeralds resonate with each other, so maybe if they gather all 7, Sonic will be able to pull the energy out of the emeralds in order to open a way home. Tails immediately begins trying to track down the other 6 emeralds, using an energy tracker that he'd built with Sonic's help. Using the energy that Sonic holds inside that greatly resembles that of a Chaos Emerald as a reference. To his shock, his tracker is displaying all 6 of the other emeralds in the middle of the ocean. Confused and worried that this could have something to do with the Eggman again, the 3 friends make their way to where the tracker leads. When they arrive, they're shocked to discover that an island that doesn't appear on any maps is right where the 6 emeralds are meant to be. Sonic is the first to spot the massive egg-shaped structure with the distinctive mustache resting in the center of a crater. Sonic pinches the bridge of his nose with a sigh, stating that he should have made sure that that thing was blown to Kingdom Come. He then turns to Tails and asks if the emeralds are clustered together. To his relief, Tails tells him that they aren't, instead seeming to be scattered across the island. Good. That means that the egghead hasn't gotten his hands on them yet. Landing the tornado on the beach, they begin to make their way through the jungle, only to be attacked by someone that they've never seen before. Amy and Tails don't even know what he is, having never seen his species before. The red brute smacks his fists together, telling the trio that his name is Knuckles the Echidna, and they must be the trio of terrors that Dr. Robotnic has told him about. Sonic growls at hearing that faker using the Robotnic name again, but Amy holds him back from saying anything he might regret with a hand on his shoulder. Turning to the Echidna, she tells him that there seems to be a misunderstanding. They're not here to cause any trouble, they're just looking for the Chaos Emeralds. Before she can begin to explain why they're looking for them, Knuckles interrupts her. Angrily, he states that if they're looking for the Chaos Emeralds, then they must be up to something. He's heard all about how they've been trying to obtain all 7 to further their own power, and he's not going to let them. He tells them to leave his island if they know what's good for them, because they will not be getting the emeralds, and if they try, they will have to deal with him and the good doctor. With that, the redhead burrows underground, leaving our trio completely stunned. The first to recover from the shock is Sonic, who shakes his head with a sigh. I get the feeling this guy doesn't get out much. Left with little choice, the trio begin to make their way inland. If Eggman is here and has wrapped the local inhabitants around his little finger, then the only ones that can stop whatever he's planning are them. As they travel through the jungle biome, they keep coming across badniks that they need to smash, freeing the little animals inside them. Sonic is morbidly curious as to what excuse Eggman gave the Echidna to explain away using little critters as power and processing units for his machines. After a while, they find themselves coming across a new machine that looks like a flying tank. Before any of them can even try to fight it, the tubes at the top of it open up and launch a series of bombs. Acting fast, Sonic tackles Amy and Tails out of the way. They get to their feet, preparing to fight the thing, only to be distracted by cries of distress all around them. Looking around, they see a whole fleet of flying tanks, dropping bombs into the jungle around them, setting the trees alight and sending the critters that haven't been put in badniks running. They turn back to the tank closest to them, only to see it flying away. Deciding that they'll catch up with it later, they turn their attention back to the fire. Knowing that there's nothing they can do to stop the fire, at this point, they focus on rescuing as many of their little critters as they can. With Tails' flight, Amy's strength, and Sonic's speed, they spread out and gather up as many critters as they can, moving them to the beach where they'll be able to avoid the fire. Halfway through the jungle, they find a tank that is larger than the others. Tails turns to Amy and Sonic with a grin. 50 Rings says that that's the Queen Bee tank and the others are worker tanks. Sonic snorts while Amy giggles, telling the youngest that it's worth a shot before they turn their attention back to the tank. Turning to Amy, Sonic asks if she's feeling like a home run. Grinning back, she stops on a dime and hefts her hammer, telling him to pitch. Turning to her, Sonic revs up a spin dash before speeding towards her. Just at the right moment, Amy swings her hammer, sending Sonic soaring up into the air above the tank, where he then begins to plummet towards it, still in a ball. From there, he proceeds to bounce on top of the tank in the same spot, while Amy and Tails pummel it from below. It doesn't take long for the tank to succumb to the brutal onslaught, falling to the ground in a pile of mashed metal and exposed wires. The trio look around in surprise as the jungle shakes with a cacophony of booms as the other tanks all fall to the ground, completely useless. With that problem taken care of, they continue on their way, following Tails' emerald tracker. It doesn't take long before they find themselves at a waterfall, crossing a bridge to get to the other side of a gorge right in front of it. As soon as they reach the little island at the midway point, however, a certain megalomaniacal roboticist emerges from the waterfall, riding a large blue vehicle with a pair of cannon-like barrels attached to its sides. The trio prepare for an attack, only for the barrels to point down and launch fireballs at the bridge, setting it on fire. Within seconds, the wooden bridge is reduced to cinders, leaving them unable to go back the way they came. Before they can attempt to strike back, Eggman retreats back into the waterfall. Amy shouts for him to get back here and face us, you coward! Before she can continue her rant, however, Tails shouts for her to look out as a shadow forms in the waterfall right above her. Acting out of pure instinct, she jumps back as Eggman emerges from the waterfall where she just was and launches fireballs at where she'd just been. Eggman clicks his tongue in annoyance at having missed the pinkette, and is about to retreat back into the waterfall when Sonic slams into the side of his machine, rattling both it and him. Righting himself, he shouts at the blue blur to watch it. He put a lot of work into his Scorcher Mark III, and he'll not have it getting ruined by an annoying blue rodent and his little posse of pests. Rather than receiving a response from Sonic, what he gets instead is a hammer colliding with the protective glass surrounding the cockpit before it boomerangs back to its owner, leaving a massive spiderweb of cracks behind. Swiftly following on the heels of the hammer, Tails drops from the air above the Scorcher Mark III, using the momentum of his fall to slam his tails into the spot where the cracks are, further worsening the damage. Before Eggman can retreat back into the waterfall, Sonic slams into the damaged spot at full force with a spin, breaking through the glass and slamming into the control panel with a crash. Eggman frantically slams the eject button on his Eggmobile. Detaching from the Scorcher Mark III, he lifts off and away, leaving the Scorcher Mark III to fall. As the Scorcher Mark III begins to fall down the waterfall, Sonic makes a jump for the landing where his friends are. With so little of a running start, he's barely able to reach the edge, where Amy and Tails grab him and pull him up. For a moment, they take the time to breathe a sigh of relief, before they all get back to their feet and continue on. Just as they're crossing the bridge to the other side of the waterfall, another shadow passes over them. Looking up, they come face to face with Knuckles once again. Standing on a cliff just above them, the echidna glares down at them, telling them that they really have no honor at all. First they invade his island, and now they set it on fire? They really are scum. Amy tries to tell him that they did no such thing, but her arguments land on deaf ears. Knuckles swiftly lifts his foot and stomps onto something on the ground next to him. Before any of the trio can react, the bridge gives out beneath their feet, sending them all tumbling into whatever awaits them below. After a few moments of falling, the gang find themselves falling through a new place that looks like some kind of grand temple made out of grey, golden brown, purple, aqua, and green bricks. Amy looks around her, her fascination briefly overriding her fear and dread at their fall. She asks the boys who they think built this place. Sonic tells her that if he had to guess, he'd say it was the ancestors of that Knuckles guy. The place looks pretty old, and the only person they've seen up here, aside from Eggman, is the hothead. He turns his head to look below them before telling his friends that he hopes they're good at holding their breath, because it looks like their landing is going to be very wet. A few seconds later, the trio land in a massive body of water with a great splash. Sinking to the bottom, they begin to make their way forward. To herself, Amy thinks that, at least this time, the water is clean. After a while, they manage to get out of the water, using a speed booster and slide system to launch them high into the air and out of the water. As they're flying up, Amy spots a little alcove and directs herself towards it, while calling for the boys to follow her. Grabbing onto the ledge, she pulls herself up, while Tails flies Sonic over. Once they're all safely in the open air of the alcove, they take a moment to stop and think of their next move. They still need to find the emeralds and stop whatever Eggman is planning this time. Turning to Tails, Sonic asks if the chaos detector is still working. Pulling it out of hammer space, Tails turns it on, relieved to see that it's at least doing that. To his surprise, it indicates that there should be an emerald just a little further down the tunnel. Walking down the tunnel a little further, the trio soon find a giant ring floating in front of them. Sonic and Amy both recognize it as looking very similar to the special rings of Little Planet. Deciding to test a theory, Sonic reaches out and touches the ring, soon finding himself in a strange world. The floor is checkered and slightly warped, while the whole space is filled with red, blue, and white orbs. The white orbs with red stars he recognizes from the Time Stone trials and knows exactly what they'll do. But the blue and red ones, he can only give an educated guess based on his previous experiences with trials in these special zones. Since these zones seem to work on video game rules, he guesses that he needs to do something with the blue orbs and avoid the red ones. With a plan set, he begins to make his way towards one lot of blue orbs. The moment his feet are moving, however, he finds himself no longer able to control them, being forced to keep moving. Okay, new wrinkle. Once the trial starts, you can't stop moving. Got it. He jogs up to the blue orbs, but finds himself passing right through them, turning them red as he goes. Okay, so he needs to turn the blue orbs red. Got it. The lot he's going through is in the shape of a square, with several orbs in the center. What would happen if he just changed the orbs on the outer edge? The moment the last orb turns red, making a perfect square outline, the whole lot turns into rings. He also finds himself moving a little bit faster. So the longer he's in this zone, the faster he goes? Sonic grins. Oh, this is going to be fun. Outside of the special zone, barely a second has passed between Sonic touching the ring. A bright flash of light blinding Amy and Tails as they shield their eyes. When the light fades, they look to see Sonic standing there with a big grin, holding the green emerald and flashing them a victory sign. Smiling, the two congratulate him on a job well done, but request that next time he warns them before he activates the ring, they prefer not having their eyes burned to a crisp. And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave this story for now. Join me next time as the gang continue their journey through Angel Island. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.